Hey everybody, welcome to the Real United States, and we're back in the kitchen for a variety of reasons, one of which is in a recent survey that we ran on our Community Fit tab. We had some positive response that, yes, I'd like to see more cooking videos, so here we are. And also because, well, it's bloody cold outside. There's snow on the ground and it's cold, and it's more difficult for me to deal with the cold physically these days. Don't worry, I'm still going to be out in the field freezing to death with poor little Beverly in tow from time to time. But we are also going to be doing, obviously, some kitchen episodes for you. So, I'm doing something which is certainly not uniquely American, because we're going to make bean soup. Now, beans are eaten pretty much, they're ubiquitous every place on the earth. I don't know that necessarily the same types of beans are eaten everywhere, so. Certainly in much of Latin America, pinto beans and black beans, more common maybe than they are in North America and the United States and Canada, although still very common here. So the popularity, soybeans are used for a lot of things in the United States, but they're not eaten like edamame is eaten in Japan. So, beans is kind of a broad category. But anyway, today we're using a combination of beans. These are Great Northern beans and pinto beans. So it's a combination of beans. You know what, folks? You can use any kind of beans you want. Beans are cheap, and they'll cook pretty much the same way. Now, you say, well, Paul, that's dry beans. That's going to take forever. You should have soaked them first. You can. It's not a requirement. They're going to get soaked in the pot. Soaking them overnight expedites them a little bit. Some of you, hey, you soak them in baking soda and it takes away that stuff that gives you gas. Maybe. Maybe not. I've never seen any scientific experimentation done on that to prove that's true. You can soak your beans overnight. That's fine. You can also put them in a colander and scrub them if you're concerned about their cleanliness. These we've looked at seem to be quite clean, so we're all good. I keep them in there just to keep anything that might happen along out of them. If you leave them in the bag, critters can get into them. Now, you say, well, my house is clean. My house is clean too, but critters find a way. So, we like to put them in a glass jar to seal them up. Whatever. Very simple process today, folks. We are going to do it kind of, 18th century style today. But we'll get to that in a minute. So what do you put in your bean soup? Well, you got to have some beans, and you got to have some pork. Now, when I was a kid, my mom did this with a ham bone. We'd roast a ham, bake a ham, and then when the ham was all eaten up, or whatever little bits and pieces were left, and the bone with all the pieces of meat and fat on it, that all went in the pot. This pot, in fact, folks, this pot is older than me. This belonged to my mother. It's a little 4-quart or 5-quart kettle, cast iron kettle, that is, like I say, predates me. And what she would do is she would take the ham trimmings, the ham bone and everything, put it in there, and do it like we're going to do. Put it on top of the wood stove. And then she would add some seasonings and some beans. Whatever kind of beans she had on hand. Usually those are going to be Great Northern beans or pea beans, navy beans. Usually they were a white bean. Mom wasn't big on kidney beans or black beans or anything like that, so they were one of those little white beans. I happen to like them all. I didn't feel like cooking a whole ham, so we got a fork shank. You can do this with ham. You can do it with a fork shank. You can do this with a fork hock, which is probably a little more practical because this is big. Little fork hocks. Very hard word for me to say these days. Are good. But what you want to get in here, is pork flavor and smoke. You want pork and you want smoke. So whatever you use is relatively material. I may stick a little salt fork in this because I like fork fat, but we'll see. Anyway, then you're going to want, after your fork, your smoked fork, you're going to want some onion, an onion, some onion, and you're going to want about 3 or 4 cloves of garlic. We like garlic. If you don't like garlic, don't put it in. This is not like baking. It's not a real finite science, right? You want some bell pepper in there, or you want some paprika, or some adobo, or a little achiote. That's okay. Make your soup the way you like. I may end up adding a little achiote in there or something later on. Right now I want to get the pork and the beans cooking because they take hours and hours to cook. So what I'm going to do, I've already cut up my onion through the magic of YouTube. I have 1 medium onion chopped and 3 large, 4 small, whatever, cloves of garlic minced. Don't worry about either one of these. You're going to put them in a pot of water, you're going to boil them for 6 hours. Trust me, they're going to disintegrate. Pork. Will my pork fit in the pot? Maybe. I was told it was questionable. Close the hell enough. It laid right down the bottom, just beautiful. See, folks? Sun shines, you know, even on a dog sometimes. I say this is about a 5-quart kettle, like a Dutch oven. If you don't have a wood stove and a cast iron kettle, this works fine in a Dutch oven. You know, just a steel or any kind of pot you got, aluminum. It'll work in a slow cooker. Slow cookers are good. By doing it this way, by the way, you're infusing a lot of more flavor in the beans, I think, versus soaking them overnight. But hey, you know, that's me. And I'm going to use like half a bag of beans, which is about a cup of beans. So if you don't have to measure them. Just pinch the bag in the middle, open the bag, pinch in the middle, pour half the bag in the pot. You're good to go, folks. This is not rocket surgery. Now, I was admonished that because the pork is probably already pretty salty, that I don't even have salt. You can imagine who admonished me about that. You cannot oversalt a bean for me. I mean, maybe at some point, but it is nearly impossible to oversalt a bean. But just to be on the safe side, I'm going to put in 2 pinches of salt, which is, I assure you, less than a teaspoon. Beans. Now I'm gonna cover this with water, which again, through the magic of YouTube, I have put in this beautiful 8-cup Pyrex bowl, so I didn't have to stand over the sink while you were going. Come on, Paul, get to the point. So, and yeah, it's going to take all 8 cups. 2 quarts, like I said, it's about a 5-quart. I'm going to put in my garlic. And again, you can put in whatever other seasonings, thyme, rosemary, marjoram, bay. Bay is always good. There's my garlic. Here's my onion. I like me some onion. Onion and garlic contain a substance that works as a natural antibiotic. So we eat a lot of them. We eat a lot of them because they taste good. But that's it. I'm going to stir that up a little bit, best I can. The meat is covered, which you'll see in a second. That's it. That is it, folks. I'm going to take this whole concoction over to the stove, and I'm not misspeaking myself. It's not the range. The range is over there. I'm going over to the stove, Now, for those of you who have been with us for a lot of years, you'll remember a little stove. Hi, little stove. Little stove is a coal and wood burning vessel that we did an episode about 4 or 5 years ago, I guess. And I'm going to put that on there, and I'm going to leave it. And about every hour I'm going to come over and I'm going to poke it to see how it's doing. And how long do you cook it? Until it is done. Okay? That's probably going to cook because this temperature is going to fluctuate and all kinds of stuff. If you're cooking this on a range, put it on medium low. Maybe even low. And you're going to cook that for 4 hours-ish. Okay? The meat is going to fall off the bone. That's a good thing. But what you really want is when the beans are soft. You're going to scoop out a bean and you're on a spoon. You're going to blow it until it's cool. You're going to stick it in your pie hole. And when it's soft, it's done. That's it. Because again, it's not rocket surgery. So, but I like the aesthetic charm of cooking on the wood stove. And that's how this pan has usually been used throughout my lifespan, which is getting to be a substantial chunk of time. So yeah, that pan has been cooking on a wood stove for probably 3/4 of a century now, and or more. And the soup is going to be great. So bear with us, and if I don't lose my mind, we'll come back and I will show you the finished product of our bean soup. Hang tight. Okay, apparently I screwed the pooch on using my lavalier mic, and we're stuck with this. I also neglected to show you what's going on in here before I moved on. So before the soup gets really cooked, Bev wants to show you inside of the kettle. And she was very proper about telling me that when we cut off just a moment ago. So you see the onions are full floated to the top. But a little piece of fork right here, sticking just right below the surface of the water. And the garlic's floating in there too. Beans are on the bottom. They're not floating right now, which is a good sign. Because that means there's no air or anything trapped in them. They're just solid bean there on the bottom. And boy howdy, I want to tell you, that stove is good and hot, and we are burning today both wood and coal. I don't know how cold it is outside, but they were saying last night it could get down to 10. I guess it's around 20 right now is what Beverly's mouthing at me behind the camera. So, yeah, it's cold. So we got this thing going, like I said, with both wood and coal. We'll be right back. Alright folks, so about, I don't know, 7 hours has passed, roughly, maybe 8 hours. With this just sitting here on the wood stove. I got good news and I got bad news. The beans did cook down to where they are very nice and tender. They're nice and soft. I was able to take some out. They're nice and soft, like beans are supposed to be. However, if we look in here, you're going to see there's still a lot of fluid left. Now you'll notice I took the lid off and that I've cooked it down, reduced it a little bit, so let some of the liquid off. But it's still kind of liquidy. I'm used to my bean soup being a lot thicker. But, you know, sometimes it goes well and sometimes it goes badly, and you just go ahead and you run with it because things will go wrong in the kitchen. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this over and I'm going to try and remove some of the bones out of that fork shank, and what we have left should be our soup. So let's go ahead and pull this over here. There we go. I should be able to work with it now without scalding myself, hopefully, because it is quite hot still. What I've got there is my garbage bowl sitting on a stool. And boy, that is tender, I'll tell you that. It is falling off the bone just as promised. But I'm going to take it out just to be sure I get... Well, maybe I'm not. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. there's most of the bone right there. And the meat, as you can see, is just falling right off of it. I put a sheet tray down here mostly so I didn't have any moisture get away from me. But yeah, boy howdy, we got all the good out of that. And the smoky flavor definitely came out into the beans. Now I know there's another piece of bone in here. And I suppose a pair of tongs, there's the other bone, would have been in order so that I could cut this meat up a little bit, but boy, for the most part I don't have to. It's just, oh, look at that. It's like pulled fork, so to speak. The skin is on there, a little bit of skin is on there, is the only thing holding it together. So there'll be nice big chunks of pork in the soup. It's like there's a another fair-sized piece of meat in there, but it's just, like I say, it's so tender that I can just sort of pull it apart on the side of the pot. Stir around, okay. Well, we're making this up as we go along, folks. No script and no net, so if things go wrong, they go wrong. Ah, that's warm. That's very warm in the little fingers. Oh yeah, it's good and hot. Okay. Well, good, bad, or indifferent, that is our soup. Back on the stove just for now. Big. Now the meat comes to the surface, you know. Ouchie. But that's okay. For most people, I might have to cut it up at the table. But again, there's a little more watery than what I'm used to seeing in my bean soup. And usually it thickens up on its own quite nicely. The Great Northern beans and the navy beans typically get this nice, thick, like gravy kind of thing going on. If you've ever seen or bought those kind of beans in the jars, you know, they've got that thick gravy kind of thing going on. But maybe I just put too much water in this for the amount of beans. That's usually about what we're going to do for it, is a cup of beans. And I may have just put too much water in, but you see that the onions, there's a few pieces left, but you saw how much was in there originally, and it's pretty well dissolved. There's very few pieces of this cooked onion left. Lots of ham, or pork rather, pork shank, and the beans are nice and tender. And well, I keep burning myself. That is really quite hot. But that smoky flavor and the pork flavor came into the beans so nicely. So, I mean, this is one of those things, like you say, you saw I put it together, and you put it on the stove, and about once an hour or hour and a half or so you go, and you make sure it's not sticking, and you make sure it's still got water on it, and it cooks itself. It's not something you gotta fuss over. It's not like making risotto, or maybe polenta or something like that. This just cooks itself. You let it go. So anyway, folks, I hope you've enjoyed this, well, episode on bean soup, sort of 18th century style, done on the wood stove with the cast iron pot. Even though it didn't go quite exactly as we had planned, I still hope you enjoyed it. And if you got questions or comments, please leave in the comments section down below, and I will do my best to try and answer them. Whatever, if you're new here, welcome. And I hope you enjoyed this. Please consider clicking subscribe to come along for the adventure, because, hey, we got lots more to show you. And as always, folks, well, thank you for watching.